living experience.
A little bit.
Yes.
With the foundation.
Do me a favor. Try not to look at the camera. Try to look at me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I got you. There you go.
Oh, man.
How long you been doing this?
About since February. It's about 3 months.
Okay.
Almost 3 months. I've always liked, doing video, recording podcasts and things like that. So I was like, let me try to pick it up and, do some different things. And that's when I kind of got into the whole, interviewing people and things like that. So.
Well, you say recruiting in the Air Force, or remind me what you do in the Air Force again?
No. So I work for CE. I'm CE.
Okay.
So I'm an EA. So like surveying, maps, things like that. Okay. That's what I do. Okay. So the thing about being stationed at Hanscom in Boston, they have a CE squadron, but it's all contracted out. Yeah. Right. So we're working in LCMC, which is the program office. So basically like acquisitions, right? Right. So we're doing like drone detection systems, things of that nature. Yeah. That's more so what we focus on. But it's not relevant to my job, my career field. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's cool what we're doing, but it's like I can't really put that down. It's like EA work, because we're not surveying, we're not doing maps, we're not making floor plans. So it's like,
how long you been there?
It was 6 years this past February. Okay. Am I gonna make it a career? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't blame you. Man.
I don't know. So let's get it. Are you ready? All right. You gonna count us in?
Oh, sure.
6, 7.
Okay. I'm ready.
Just count back from 3.
3, 2, 1.
I remain forever remain.
Hey, they didn't think I would do it, but I did it. Really having it, really winning. Was times that I thought I'd forever be sinning and spending whatever to stand on the business. But God bless the game, did it all but a sinning. All the shots they let off, but they ain't hitting. All the shots we let off, they ain't mentioned was hitting. Go ask why he's fighting them limping. Never change, I'm the same as just in me. The only thing changes the paper my vision. Can't forget about the diamonds and chains on my pendant was starving, but now we eat steak for a living. If we ever fell out, you was fake or we can switch sides, don't be standing on. But yet I'm the biggest, ain't changing my click rep to 6 disrespect and get put in that dick.
I won't let them change me. I remain.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of Basement Club Podcast. I'm your host, the NCO with the most, Philip Taylor. I know y'all kind of noticed we're in a different location. Things are looking kind of different than what they usually look like. We are on the road. We took the show on the road. And today's guest, I got a good brother out here in Columbus, my hometown. Columbus Air Force Base, doing a lot of great things. Air Force pilot, just got done with pilot training. Instructor, make some noise for my man, Torious Moore. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
I like to ask all my guests this question. When you hear people talk about you and talk about some of the things that you've done and accomplished, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel awkward? Like, what is the initial thought process when you hear things like that?
Yeah, it makes me feel a little awkward. It's kind of like when someone sings you happy birthday at a restaurant. But for me, when it comes to accomplishments and stuff like that, it's just about the next step forward and keep pushing it. They always ask Tom Brady, what's his favorite Super Bowl? Right. And he always says the next one. Right. So I'm not a person who likes to dive in or delve into the accomplishments so much, but I like to keep it pushing to see what I can do next.
So I want to start all the way back in the beginning. Yeah. So you're from Fort Payne, Alabama.
Yep. Right there.
Born and raised in Alabama. When you initially told your family, like, hey, I want to give the Air Force, this military thing a try, what was the initial conversation? Like, what was their thought process behind it?
I mean, it was welcome, I would say. No one in my family joined the military at this point. My dad actually was going to go military, but he jumped out of the helicopter because he was scared of heights. I'm actually scared of heights, stationary, things like that. To be honest with you, I had all my brothers. I was the least likely one to join the military. Right. I ended up being the only one to join the military. So it's been a whirlwind. But when I told my parents about this situation, they were supporting. in terms of being a pilot and those types of things, but it's something new to them, right?
Right.
I learned from my parents that work ethic is very important, whether it was directly or indirectly, and that's what's been driving me ever since.
So going to college, at what point where it's like, okay, the Air Force is where it's at, pilot training where it's at? Like, was it in college? Was it before college? Like, where did the inspiration come from?
So it was a little bit before college. I seen this guy, I think Jeremy Duckett, I may forget his last name.
Yeah.
But he was like the leading interception leader for the state of Alabama at this point in time. But I seen his bracelet. He had Tuskegee University on there.
Yeah.
And I knew about the Tuskegee Airmen and whatnot, but I didn't know they had a college. And it actually is the only HBCU with aerospace engineering major. So I seen that bracelet that day. I went ahead and applied. But before that, or a little bit after that point, we had career day at the high school, and a guidance counselor came in there, and she's always been nice to me.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the middle of the classroom, and then, folks in high school not really paying attention.
Right.
They're not thinking like that. I'm working high schoolers now, so I kind of see it even more now. But she's like, no one's listening. She's like, and then she starts like looking out in the room, and she just picks on me to say, hey, what do you want to do with your career? And I say A, B, C, and D. With that being aerospace engineering, going to Tuskegee University, becoming a pilot, and then going on to be an astronaut. And then ever since that day, I've been like, I gotta keep it moving. Gotta, achieve my dreams and then, do the right thing.
So you graduate from college. It's time for you to start your journey in the Air Force. There are friends, there are acquaintances, there are people that, you made friends with while at Fort Payne in Alabama. Was it hard for you to let go certain friends, because everybody can't go with you?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's not built for the journey.
That's facts.
Was it hard for you to let those people go? And if so, was there any resentment behind it?
I would say not so much so. Not that I didn't thought about it since you just asked me, because growing up, my mom was a travel nurse, so we lived in different states like Massachusetts, the DMV area, California, and things like that. We eventually came back for my last 2 years of high school. So I haven't really thought about too much about my friends. I keep in touch with one or two, but when you come from a small town like that, which is Atala, Etowah High School, a lot of people stay within that town. But I haven't really thought too much about leaving my friends. It's probably more so in college when you start seeing people going to different Air Force bases and deploy and things like that. But I really haven't thought too much about it.
So when you go back, do you still see those same people? Like, what's the reception when you go back?
Well, usually when I go back home, it's just this family stuff. And like I said, I don't get a lot of free time, but when I do go home, I try to spend it with family and whatnot. But yeah, it's different. I think my 10-year reunion just passed up, and I mean, I've been so busy with, working multiple jobs. I just haven't been able to get down there and make it. But I do have a few good friends from high school that I still talk to every now and then.
So when you say you're working multiple jobs, I know you got the Air Force as the main gig. What's the side?
The side gigs,
thing?
right? And all is equally as important to me, at least. Being a chief pilot for Aberdeen High School, they're the first high school that has a flight school in the state of Mississippi. They got awarded a $1 million grant from the Department of Labor to do such, and I've been grateful to have the opportunity to help them lead them through that pathway. So that's one of my jobs, being the chief pilot for that school. And then I'm working on my master's in systems engineering at FAMU/FSU. So that's kind of like my 3-time jobs. I got a dog too, so we can
dog there. That's a job too.
We can add that one in there. But
yeah,
we try.
So when you first get to Columbus, and again, this is my hometown. This is home to me. What was your first thoughts when you got to
it's small, not a lot to do, not a lot of people to see. I mean, it's I would say it's friendly. I mean, it's the South for the most part. I mean, I just came from Randolph, which is in San Antonio, so a lot of things to do. A lot of people who kind of look like us, I would say. But the Air Force Base is a little bit different when it comes to the outside community.
Right.
I have no bad things to say about Columbus. I would prefer to be somewhere else, but I have no bad things to say.
Who are your mentors? Who are the people that you can go and like bounce ideas off of, and like, you know, who are the people that you can go and vent to?
Yeah.
Who are those people, and why did you choose those people?
I wouldn't say I chose them, but more so they chose me. I've been grateful to have a lot of help from once, you know, I started college and to this day forward. So when I was, you know, before I graduated college, I was the chief pilot for the Red Tail Scholarship Foundation. And before that, I was a pilot, just, you know, a regular scholar going through the program there at Moulton Field, home of the Tuskegee Airmen. And I've met great people who became my mentor, which is, you know, Sheriff Rich Peace. He's a 187 fighter wing pilot at the Red Tail unit. And I met General Sparrow, who's now retired. They're both members of the board for that foundation. Hammond Cobb also helped me out along the way. And also my assistant chief pilot at that time, Jared Savage, just helped me out. And the people, you know, I was roommates with in college and doing the same thing with the Air Force and becoming pilots, you know, and Chisholm and Darren Riley, people like that. So they help keep me grounded, friends and mentors. But, you know, I kind of met them along the way. I mean, they kind of showed me, I guess you could say.
Where is all this coming from? This philanthropic nature, you know, being a chief pilot for Aberdeen High School, and, you know, helping them develop the first ever the flight pilot school in Mississippi, you know, for a high school. Like, where does that come from?
Man, it's hard to say, but my heart wants to say that it comes from Tuskegee. Ever since I stepped foot on our campus, like I felt that spirit, I felt that history, that tradition, that legacy, that culture. Whether, you know, it starts with the Tuskegee Airmen. You got Rosa Parks, you got Booker T. Washington, you got George Washington Carver, you got Malcolm X's wife. Like, I go on and on and on about the history that lies there. But since I've been there, it's inspired me to be a part of it. I mean, even a mechanic like Craig Moore, same last name but not related. We look alike. People say, but his great uncle was a Tuskegee Airman chief mechanic for the Tuskegee Airman program. So it's been around people like that, and just every single day we want to, you know, prove to people that we can fly, we can do these things, and we can teach people to fly. We can keep that circle going. So it's just been a thing to me to just, you know, be a part of it. I've been happy. So
speaking of that, I kind of want to, you know, kind of go down that road. When you say you want to show people that we can fly, we can do these things, have you ever ran into a situation where you found yourself having to overcompensate because, you know, they think that we can't do these things because of what we look like, things of that nature, maybe where we're from? Do you find yourself sort of overcompensating?
I wouldn't say overcompensating, but I would say working twice as hard, sometimes 3 times as hard, to prove that we deserve to be in this position. As we talked about it earlier, but like coming from Columbus Air Force Base, I've been the only Black guy to go the T-38, which is the fighter bomber track, in the past 3 years. You know, even on the civilian side, you don't see a lot of people who look like us. Even when I was instructing at that point, you know, I would step out the airplane and they would, you know, think that I'm a student. So it just depends, man. But I feel like there's not a lot of us out there doing the things that I'm doing, and people around me that's doing, essentially. And we just gotta make sure we are properly prepared for, you know, whatever condition, situation, circumstances that, you know, that's upon us. But it's tough, man. That's a tough question. But I just try to, you know, put my leg in my pants one leg at a time. If I said that backwards, but
so let's say if you find yourself trying to overcompensate, if you catch yourself trying to do too much, do you have mechanisms in place where you can reel it back in? You know what I mean? Like, and what are those? Like, what are those things that you do to kind of keep yourself in check? Like, hey, I don't have to do this. I can do this. I don't have to step outside of myself.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what it is, right? Taking it back to the basics. A lot of times in my head, I like to, if I feel like I'm thinking too fast, thinking about too many things, I like to say, okay, cool, Tuskegee, calculate. Because that's like, it brings me back home. For me, that's a second home. So those are things I like to just, you know, take a deep breath, think about what's going on, and then, you know, checklists or, you know, whatever it is at the time to
Right.
just focus on that. But I try not to get too crazy with all the stuff on the outside affecting me on the inside. So I'm more of an eat and kill person.
Got it.
I don't wear my emotions on my sleeve per se, but it's yeah.
How did you get to that point? Because I know with some people, you might have a young pilot trainee or maybe a young A1C who's trying to make it through the Air Force, you know what I mean? And they might be thinking like, hey, black airman, you know, whatever, you know, how can you, like, what can you tell them to kind of help them kind of rein in their emotions to kind of, you know, keep things where they need to be compartmentalized, what they need to compartmentalize?
Yeah, for them, like I said, it depends on the student, depends on, you know, who's underneath me, but I would say think about what's important to them.
Yeah.
Is what's bothering them, is it different than what they want to achieve? Is it affecting what they want to achieve? And think about what inspires you to get to that point. What inspires you to get to the end goal? I mean, obviously you enjoy the journey more than you enjoy the end goal, but in every, you know, internal motivation and inspiration is all different for everybody, and that's the toughest part, especially with our generation.
Right.
Like, you know, digital media,
Yeah.
people getting distracted, and I mean, for me, I stay grounded in, you know, my faith, my family, the friends that I do have, and, you know, my support system. But honestly, I just try to connect with them, you know, be more of a listener than a talker,
Right.
as we're doing here. But, you know, it's good leaders are, you know, born from being a good follower, at least good leaders are. But I just try to listen to them, man, and then try to, you know, see what's internally motivating or inspiring them to get to that point. And if it's you know, what's affecting them, not that, then I would say focus back on what's, you know, brought you here,
Right.
and what's going to get you to the end goal.
You feel like pilots have a negative perception about
The military?
military pilots, Air Force pilots? Do you think do you guys have a negative perception about you guys? Because I know some people might say that, you know, certain pilots are the egotistical, you know, they're, you know, stuck up and things like that. But they don't know there are pilots like yourself who's willing to sit down and have a conversation to be vulnerable. You know, do you think that is there?
Yeah.
And what do you think? Where do you think it comes from?
Speaking from just the Air Force and just my own personal opinion about, you know, being a pilot in that avenue, I would say there are a lot of type A personalities. And I don't know if I necessarily click with the type A. I hear people say go type A or type B, but you know, it's like I said, it is tough to think about what other people, you know, say of you,
Right,
and whatnot. But I try not to focus too much on that stuff. But I mean, I think about like every day, you know, back in the service squadron I used to walk through. And I think about Chappie James, who is a first 4-star black general from Tuskegee University. And we think about Robin O's, and a lot of people with a type A personality always think about Robin O's. For me, I think about Chappie James, because he come from Tuskegee. His flight suit, his service dress is in our museum. And I think about that photo that people always see with, you know, holding the champagne and Robin O's, and I always see Robin O's first, which is a type A personality. And I think about Chappie James, and I think like that's more the person I connect with, and he's type B-ish per se. Like, I try not to delve in too much about what people say about personalities, but you know what we're trying to get to you know, be a successful pilot, a professional aviator, and things like that. But I personally, I don't think I have a type A personality, but I do know that that is very common, that people think that pilots have that. But I just say, be respectful. Treat someone how you want to be treated as well.
The golden rule. The golden rule. So let's take Air Force out of it, pilot training out of it. Let's get real for a second. What is your goal out of life?
In life?
Yeah. What is the thing that you're set out to do and want to achieve?
My goal personally is to go on to become a fighter / test pilot,
Mhm.
and to go on to become the first Tuskegee person to become an astronaut. That's my goal. Obviously, I know you have to have a plan B, plan C, plan
Yeah.
D, but that's what I feel like is for me to do.
What about personal? You don't want to write a book. You
Oh
don't
no,
wanna learn how to play chess. you know.
I do martial arts as well.
Okay.
And my end goal is to become a seafood.
Okay.
Or correlate that to sensei in karate. I was very close to it when I was in San Antonio, but I would like to do that. Obviously, finish out my education piece. I would like to go on to finish my EMT to paramedic, or go on to med school. Obviously, getting more in touch with my faith, having a family, which is important too. Trying to get like you.
Stop it.
Per se. But there's a lot that I want to achieve. I could just go down the list of things I would like to do, but there's only so much time.
So I want to go back. I want to transition back to the Aberdeen High School.
Mm-hmm.
How did that even come about? Like, how does somebody even think about?
Dude, it's luck and timing. I was coming back from pilot instructor training from Randolph ×2 back to Columbus ×2. And I was just starting my instructor gig, and the superintendent for Aberdeen School District reached out to Columbus Air Force Base for support.
Yeah.
Came down from the wing execs down to the group execs, and the group exec at that time, Captain Dave Brown, I think he's a major at this point, but he knew about a couple of other people on base who could potentially do the thing.
Right.
He reached out to Colonel Eric Jones at the time, and he knew about what I did at the Red Tails for their foundation at Tuskegee Moat Field. And it's like, okay, I think Capt Moore, Torious Moore could handle this.
Yeah.
So eventually got to my desk, like literally as soon as I come back from pilot instructor training at Randolph, I'm like, okay, I've done this once. I think I can do it again. Yeah. At least help them get to a point where they're stable.
Right.
So it came down from a letter of support from the superintendent from the school district, and it went its way down through the wing, the group, and then to me. People knowing about what I've done before, at least knowing of me at some point, and to kind of work this way from there.
So when you're going through that process, again, going back to what we were talking about, people that look like us, did you kind of get any pushback? Or you just doing this because Aberdeen's a predominantly black school or black school district, that can come. I've seen it. I've seen that happen before.
Yeah. So I will say this, like the concept behind, them being predominantly minority, that did inspire me a little bit more to want to help them out, because I've done that from the Tuskegee aspect, and I know what I can offer and what I can bring to the table.
Yep.
But my leadership has been nothing but supportive. My commanders and up the echelons and whatnot, supporting what I'm doing with the AF3902 and all that good stuff with the with the Air Force. But I've been able to work both jobs, and there's another person, Lieutenant Winstead, who's been helping me out as well.
Yep.
We both do the paperwork and whatnot, but they've been nothing but supportive. When we had our aircraft building for the first time, we had leadership there, and they had a good time. They were there. They were there to support, and they respect what we're doing.
Do you feel like, graduating from Tuskegee and going through the trainings before you become a second lieutenant, do you think that prepared you for the Air Force? I'm talking about just regular day-to-day life.
Oh, Tuskegee, yes. I could, like I said, I love Tuskegee.
Yeah.
But every HBCU has its struggle. Right. And they're going to prepare you for the real life. Yeah. So they definitely prepared me for that. I can tell you that ×2 at FAMU, and FSU and whatnot. But I wouldn't say the RTC program necessarily prepared me to be the person I am today. I would say it aided it in it a little bit, but I would say more so just going through Tuskegee and going through college and meeting the people that I did, and doing the things that I did helped me get to where I'm at.
Last question, we'll get you out of here.
Nah, you good, man. Take your time.
I got you. What would you tell a young ROTC member at an HBCU, you know, who has aspirations of following your footsteps, what one piece of advice would you give them as they start their journey through their process?
I would say be patient. You know, trust the process. There's gonna be a lot of long, hard, you know, days and nights, especially at HBCU. But the one thing I loved the most about HBCU was the professors, the resources that they did have, the office hours, and learn as much as you can as a student at that point in time. Don't, you know, focus too much on the end goal, but on the journey to get you to the point where, you know, you think about the next step. But I wouldn't say think too much in the future. Think about what's now. I have a tendency to, you know, focus so much on schoolwork, and, you know, extracurricular, volunteer, that, you know, I forgot to have a little fun. So if I had to reach out to that person or talk to that person, I would say, you know, enjoy yourself in college. Obviously, put in the work. You know, don't just goof off and whatnot. But HBCU is a struggle, but it's worth it in the end because you get to, you know, be by your people. You get to, you know, because when you leave the HBCU, I mean, I'm sure you know, it's completely different on the outside. And I feel like the time that you feel like you're most a part of home is at that school, and that's why I call it a second home at Tuskegee.
Did you ever run into a situation where people try to discredit your education because you went to HBCU?
I have not had that yet.
Okay.
I have not had that yet. But I will say in the Air Force, you have a lot of people who come from the academy, especially on the pilot side. So I have not had them try to discredit my university or anything like that. But who's to know what's to come? But I do know that I speak proudly of where I come from, and I truly don't think there's a better history of learning how to fly than at the place the first Black people learned how to fly. Yes. And that's where I learned how to fly. That's where my first flight took. And I can't be more proud. I don't think there's a better place, honestly. So I mean, if they say something, then I think I got a good response to it, is what I would say. But
what one piece of advice would you give a young Torious Moore right before he started the process going through ROTC? Right before everything kicked off, what is one piece of advice would you give him?
One, don't speak in third person. I was doing the military, man. I literally had locks. I had locks down to my shoulder. Colonel McCain, who was the commander at the time, I came in. I was like, "Hey, sir, you know, I'm interested in ROTC." Hey, man, you gotta cut your hair. I think a few days later, I'm cutting my hair. I was like, "Oh, you're," you know, literally. I came back to, you know, the next week. The class is like, "Hey, man," the teachers and professors like, "Hey, you weren't in that class last week." I was like, "Yes, I was. I just had long hair." It's like, "Are you sure?" Like, "Where's your name?" I'm like, "Right there. I signed in," or whatever. Anyways, so I would tell myself probably to cut my hair. Okay. And just, you know, just be patient. I think there's a lot of things that I've learned at Tuskegee that dealt with patience, dealing with people who even look like us, who doesn't necessarily, you know, see the trajectory that we're on. And then the other thing I would say is, when you are looking down at someone, the only time you're ever looking down at someone is to pick them up. And I know sometimes when I was going through college, I was a little bit too blunt, a little bit too harsh on people. So I would say just be a little bit more patient, be more respectful in those types of conversations or avenues. And just, I feel like I've helped a lot of people, but I feel like those who got away always, you know, stick in the back of my mind. I just think, like, you know, could have tried a little bit harder, done a little bit better, or, you know, done something a little bit different.
Last one, I promise.
You could, man.
What is one thing you think the Air Force can change right now to make to make the system better?
To make the system better.
Yeah. For our airmen, for our enlisted officer, whatever.
That's a hard one.
Yes, sir.
I would say on the pilot standpoint, something that the Air Force could do better is think about the things that pilots are doing and correlate that to what airline pilots are doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily the pay.
Yeah.
But just think about how
The work, like
the work.
Yeah,
The work is like we have our own jobs that's not a part of flying that we have to do.
Yep.
And that's like 40, 50, sometimes more than that percent that we have to focus on compared to flying. I know that may never ever change.
Right.
But I feel like if pilots are mainly there to fly, they will be more incentivized or encouraged to be part of the Air Force for 20 plus years. I always say the pay
Of
as
course,
well, but I would say like making sure everybody feels heard, make sure all personalities, type A, type B, type C, all the way to Z, are accepted, and make them feel welcome. Because I mean, from what I've seen so far, it's mainly type A.
Yeah.
And I would say not everybody always feels included when it comes to certain things. That may be a squadron-based thing, that may be a group-based thing, but that's something I would say. And like I said, I'm a proud supporter or a representative of where I come from in terms of Columbus, but those are things I think could be a little bit better there.
You hear to hear people, leaders do your damn jobs.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Great. When I come back, I got to get you back on the show,
Yeah.
man. Y'all heard it here. Thank you for watching the show. Make sure you like, subscribe. See you when I see you. Peace.